3 years ago, I sketched out this plan on a piece of paper. Today, that has scaled into over 153 rental properties faster than even I thought was possible. So in this video, I'm gonna be showing you exactly how to scale your Section 8 portfolio in the shortest period of time possible. And the reason this works is because of something I like to call the in and out method, where you don't need a lot of capital, you just need some time and a little bit of skill to put into doing this so you can be hyper successful in a fairly short period of time. Remember guys, this is real estate investing. I do not claim that you will become a millionaire overnight by doing this, but the goals and lessons of this channel are handed down to you from both me and Jared, who have scaled to over 153 Section 8 rental properties in under 3 years by using these exact same strategies that you can copy and paste into your own real estate investment journey. So what is the in and out method? Well, the reason we coined this the in and out method is because this strategy is so simple and so direct that anybody can do it, even if you're just 18 years old, fresh out of high school, working at in and out. Guys, before we actually get into the actual investment strategy, I want to break down the original in and out method that Jared and I came up with after we bought our very first Section 8 rental property. And this is exactly what we drafted out. This is, no kidding, a literal screenshot of the original piece of paper that we wrote this out on over 3 years ago, which I thought was pretty cool when I found it in my camera roll, which was the inspiration for making this video. So if we look at the original numbers on the in and out method, these are wages in California, which is where I was personally born and raised. So we just went with $80,000 in your first year working your full-time job. Now, one thing I do want to touch on before we get too deep into this was before Jared and I were familiar with seller financing. So these are strictly with bank loans and how you could actually retire off of bank loans alone in the next 5 years. The problem with this is bank loans require 20% down payments on each property that you purchase, which means you're never going to be able to scale at the same rate as the new and refined in and out method that I'm going to get to a little bit later in this video. But just for all intensive purposes, I do want to show this a little bit so you guys understand how the actual in and out method that I actually applied to my portfolio today works, and you can get a better understanding of it. So if we're looking at this just strictly from DSCR loans alone, we can see that if you made $80,000 in your first year working at in and out, that will net you about 2 properties. Now this is after your living expenses, is after paying your taxes. You can buy 2 Section 8 rental properties, and this is going to be your annual income here. So that would be $21,600 in annual profit off of your Section 8 rental properties after your first year of investing. And the way that we formatted the in and out method was after each year of purchasing properties, the amount of income you're making from those properties you can remove from your time at work. So you'll see that the income from your job will get smaller and smaller year over year, because essentially what we were doing was cutting down the amount of time you actually had to work and instead taking that income directly from your Section 8 rental portfolio. So once you get into your second year, you can see that we're doing $58,000 at in and out. Obviously that's going to be including taking less time at work, so you're working less hours at your job. You can still buy the exact same 2 properties because you're subsidizing this income with this income. So you combine this, it'll come out to about $80,000, which means that in your second year, you will be netting an additional $43,000 in passive cash flow from your rental properties. Now, if you follow this pattern, you can see where we're going with this. I'm not going to get too deep into each individual year because it's essentially going to be the same thing over and over. What you can see from this is that after your 4th year of investing, you're already making $100,000 in net income from your rental portfolio. And this is over a timeline of 10 years of investing in Section 8 rental properties, but you can see that snowball effect getting into action in these numbers here. After the first year, you're making $21,000. After the second year, you double that, you're at $43,000. Year number 3, you're at $64,000. Year number 4, $97,000, $140,000, $194,000, $260,000, $334,000, and then finally finishing off at $430,000 after just your 9th year of investing using bank loans. For the majority of people, that's going to be more than your current annual income from every dollar you make, including investments and your active 9-to-5 job. So obviously you can see the appeal of why me and Jared got so excited when we started running the numbers on these properties, realizing that if we started investing and doubling down on our rental portfolios, that we'd be able to scale at a very rapid pace, even with just bank loans alone. Now, even though 10 years is a fairly short time frame to be able to retire from your 9-to-5, Jared and I wanted to streamline this process and cut down that time so that we didn't have to be working 12-hour days as real estate agents, because keep in mind, at this point, we were still working full-time as real estate agents, putting in 10 to 12 hours per day and actually prospecting, looking for new clients. That wasn't ideal, so we wanted to cut down on that time, which is when we pivoted to seller finance deals. And this is where it gets exciting, because with seller financing, instead of taking 9 to 10 years to build up $400,000 in cash flow, you can achieve the exact same results in just 3 to 5 years, cutting your time in half to a third of the same amount of time with the same amount of capital invested. There's one more thing I want to touch on before we get into the actual in and out method and how you can apply it to your life. And it's the 3 keys that you need to have in order to invest in real estate at a hyper successful level. Those things are very simple. Number 1 is the most obvious one of it all. You're buying real estate, you need capital to get started buying your first property. So number 1 is going to be capital. For this, I recommend saving up at least $8,000 to be able to seller finance your very first Section 8 rental property. Number 2 is going to be time. You don't need to put a whole lot of time into buying your first Section 8 rental, but you do need to be consistent with it. So for time, I recommend putting in 20 to 30 minutes per day in order to be successful. And you can do this about 5 days per week. Keep in mind, this is on the front end because Section 8 is a very passive investment. So when I say you need to put some time in, that's for actually acquiring the deals. That's for finding the deals. That's for negotiating with sellers. That's for reviewing your inspection reports. There's some upfront work that needs to be done, but after you've closed and rented out that property to a Section 8 tenant, it then will become passive income, passive cash flow, because your property management will step in and they'll be able to take over all the day-to-day work and maintenance for you. And the third thing that you need if you want to successfully invest in real estate is skill. What do I mean by skill? Well, you just need to have the knowledge, the tools, and the capability to actually get started investing. You need to know what you're doing, otherwise you're gonna make expensive mistakes that aren't worth it in the long run. But Jacob, I don't have skill. I've never bought a property before. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have bought a property. The cool thing is that you can always outsource any of these 3. For skill, think coaches, think mentors. Let me rewrite that. That was really sloppy. But like I was saying, for skill, think coaches, think mentors, think maybe your uncle or grandpa who owns real estate themselves. Maybe they can help you out with this portion as well. You can always outsource at least one of these things. So as long as you have 2 of these 3 things, you will have no issue investing in real estate. You need to have a little bit of capital, you need to have a little bit of time, and you need to have a little bit of skill. Another example of outsourcing one of these would be your time, for example. When it comes to outsourcing your time, if you have a lot of capital and you have a lot of skill, you can outsource the actual deal finding portion of the process by just teaching somebody else and paying them to do it for you. And then after you've closed on the property management will take over. There's very little time needed on your end. Obviously, there will still be a few things here and there, like wet signatures, for example. But overall, it's gonna save you a lot of time by leveraging the other 2 resources that you have. So make sure you have at least 2 of these resources before going ahead and moving forward with the in and out method. So what is the in and out method? Let's get right into it. Now, obviously everybody's income is gonna vary. So for this example, I'm gonna stick with $72,000 per year in income. So let's just say you make $72,000 per year. This is your annual income, pre-tax. That means you roughly make about $6,000 a month. Post-tax, you're looking at about $4,200 per month. So your post-tax income will be $4,200. Now, you don't have $4,200 to invest because you're gonna have expenses. So let's take out rent. You have probably a $2,000 a month rent. Let's subtract groceries, we have to eat. And let's just take out an additional $700 for miscellaneous. That will leave you with $1,000 in excess income that you're able to save and actually put towards investing. Now, if you're the average American, likely you probably have a little bit of savings. On average, some of our older investors may have as much as $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 saved, while some of the younger investors might have a lot less, $8,000 to $10,000 to put towards their first property. I'm gonna try to be very conservative with this example to show you guys what's possible. You can adjust the numbers as we go through it to kind of make it fit towards your personal situation a little bit better. So let's just say you have $10,000 in savings that you're actually willing to invest. That's the key differentiator here. You have to be willing to invest this money, obviously. So let's just say you have $20,000 saved, you keep an extra $10,000 for worst case scenario, but you have $10,000 of liquid investable cash that you're willing to put today. With $10,000, and now here's the key difference that I wanted to juxtapose against the example that I showed earlier with DSCR loans. With seller financing, the benefit is that you're going to be able to put much smaller down payments on these properties. With seller financing deals, you can put anywhere between 3 to 10% down on the properties after all closing costs, after any repair costs needed on the property. You can be all in on these deals with anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000. But like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna try to be as conservative as possible. So let's just say for your very first deal, you're brand new, you don't really know what you're doing yet, so it costs you that full $10,000 to get all in on that deal. That means you're gonna have your very first property. This first property will generate between $500 to $800 in profit per month. Let's just stick to the conservative end of that and say it's generating us $500 per month. So this first property is now generating us $500 per month. Plus, we cannot forget about the extra $1,000 we have per month after all expenses. So this is our passive and this is our active. That means we have an additional $1,500 in extra monthly income. How can we scale with $1,500 per month? With $1,500 per month in income, it's gonna take us about 4 months to save up another $6,000 that we can put towards our second Section 8 rental property. Now remember, like I said, it's gonna be between $5,000 to $10,000 all in on these seller finance deals. The first one, you were new, so it cost you $10,000 all in. Second one, you have a little bit more experience, you know what to look for in the deals. So let's just say you get all in on this deal with $6,000. So it's taken us now 4 months to save up for our second property. But now we have 2 properties, so now we're generating $1,000 a month in passive income, an additional $1,000 actively. So what's our total? We're at $2,000 a month. And this is what we're going to be saving up. So at this rate, instead of 4 months, it's only going to take us 3 months to save up the additional $6,000. So after an additional 3 months, we're going to be able to buy our third property. Now, after our third property, we should be generating at least $1,500 per month in passive income. Additional $1,000 in active. Our net total is going to be $2,500 a month. How long is it going to take you to save up for the third property? 2 months if you're aggressive. Let's just keep it conservative. Say 3 months, you save up another $7,500 after 3 months. Now you can buy property number 4. So we are generating $2,000 a month in passive income, an additional $1,000 in active income. $3,000 a month, and we're 10 months into this. So now we're generating $3,000 a month, and we're only 10 months into our investing journey using seller financing. We have 4 properties. Now it's only gonna take us an additional 2 months to buy the last property because our total cash flow is $3,000 times 2 months. That's gonna be $6,000 in 2 months, which we can then use to buy our final property, property number 5, which takes us to a total of just passive income alone, $2,500 a month. So now we're at $2,500 per month in completely passive income, and all we started with was $10,000. This equates to $30,000 per year after just 1 year of using this strategy. So in 1 year, starting with $10,000, we were able to purchase 5 Section 8 rental properties, generate ourselves an additional $30,000 per year, and this is only going to compound year over year as you acquire more of these Section 8 rentals. Now, this might not sound like a lot to some of you guys, an extra $2,500 a month, but there's a lot of people out there who $2,500 extra per month is doubling what they currently make. Just imagine if you have an additional expendable $2,500 per month. Are you gonna spend that on more investments? Are you gonna spend that on more gifts? You can use that for extra vacation time with your family. The list goes on. I know what I would do with an extra $2,500 per month, and quite honestly, I would just invest it. But if I wasn't investing it, I'd probably go on vacation. Now, a few more things I do want to touch on with those examples that I just gave. The cash flow on both types of loans were slightly different. So the average cash flow for a Section 8 property will be anywhere between $500 to $800 every single month. When I first bought my very first Section 8 rental property, I was hyper confident that I could easily swing $900 per month on each property pretty consistently, maybe sometimes slightly lower, but that was a fairly aggressive example. Now, usually when you're buying with bank loans, you can get towards the higher end of that 500 to 800 a little bit more easier because you're putting more equity into the property up front, which means your mortgage is gonna be a little bit lower, so your cash flow will go up slightly. But overall, you can see why leveraging seller financing, even though the cash flow might be slightly lower, the cash on cash return will be significantly higher, and you're gonna be able to leverage that into multiple properties in a much shorter time frame than you'd be able to do with using bank loans alone. And even playing it with those numbers, with hyper aggressive DSCR bank loan numbers and very conservative seller financing numbers, we were still able to scale further with the seller financing loans than we were with the bank loans. And the in and out method was designed specifically for the bank loans, but seller financing allows you to take that even one step further, scale much quicker, get started much sooner. And another thing I want to touch on that the in and out method doesn't even cover is all of the other benefits you get when you own real estate. For example, you get rent increases almost every single year with Section 8 properties because every single year the HUD will adjust their FMRs on their website, allowing you to potentially increase the rents on your property. You're also going to get other benefits. You're going to get major tax write-offs from buying real estate, which will save you money that you can then use to invest more with. You're also going to get tax write-offs, so you're going to be able to save more money, which you can then take and invest it, on top of the fact that you're going to be building equity in the home through A, paying down your principal, and B, building equity through appreciation of that asset. These aren't massive factors, but they definitely do play into building a real estate portfolio. So I don't really like to cover them too in depth because they're not going to be as significant as actually reinvesting your cash flow and allocating any capital you have towards buying as many Section 8 properties in the shortest period of time possible. But this is the exact strategy that both my brother and myself have used to scale to over 150 properties in under 3 years of investing in the Section 8 program. Remember, there's only 3 key traits you need to have to get started to do this. Number 1, capital. Do you have $8,000 saved? Number 2 is time. Will you actually allocate 20 to 30 minutes per day to do this? If not, it's probably not for you. And number 3 is skill. If you don't have the skills yourself, you can always go out and outsource a mentor or a coach like myself, because I actually work one-on-one with some of you guys, and you can apply for that at the link at the top of the description if you want my help in acquiring your first 5 Section 8 rental properties. But if that's not something in the cards for you right now, start watching tons of real estate information. There's tons of it for free out there online. You can watch Bigger Pockets podcast. You can watch my YouTube channel, follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram. That way, when you are ready for coaching, you're already primed and ready to get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that video helped. I hope you got some good information out of there that you can actually apply to your own investment strategies. But aside from that, if there are any other questions you guys have about the in and out method or about real estate investing in general, how to get into Section 8, feel free to comment. Maybe I'll make a video on it. If this video helped you guys, make sure to hit the subscribe button because we drop tons of content like this for free here on YouTube. But if you actually want the actionable steps and guidance for your first few properties, make sure you click the link at the top of the description so you can potentially work one-on-one with both myself and my brother Jared, who have in combined purchased a total of over 150 Section 8 rental properties. And just remember, this entire strategy was based around us theorizing if an in and out kid who started at 18 years old started investing, how they could retire before the time they turn 30 years old. And if they can do it, there is no reason you can't do the same. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace.